Look at this. Basically, every new car is the same color, the same size, the same shape, gray jelly beans. But if you stood here 40 years ago, this lot would look a lot more like a bowl of Skittles. Reds, greens, blues, yellows. Cars with shapes that actually felt like someone, well, designed them. But today, we have this, the modern crossover. It's not a car, it's music and appliance, a refrigerator that goes 70 miles per hour, and it feels like every manufacturer on Earth just gave up and started using the same blueprint. So, what happened? Did we lose our imagination? Are designers just lazy? No. The truth is that there are invisible forces outside of our control that have been slowly and silently shaping car design to become the ugly, monotone dystopia that it is now. Today, we uncover these invisible forces to see how we got here, why cars have to look the way they do, and what the future of car design might look like if things don't change. But to understand why cars are ugly now, we have to look at when they were at their most radical. The 1950s, American spectacle, the space age aesthetic, tail fins, wraparound windshields, chrome everywhere. Cars like the Chevy Bel Air, the Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz, the Ford Thunderbird. Shapes that were inspired by jets and shined like jukeboxes. These were cars that to this day will stop you dead in your tracks if you see one cruising down the street. And at the same time, in Europe, there was an opposite but equally beautiful philosophy, one of simplicity, purity. The Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing, the Cisitalia 202, the Jaguar E-Type. Cars that were less inspired by machines and more inspired by nature. Cars that have now captured hearts so intensely that people will pay millions of dollars to own one. But then, in the late 1960s, music, a group of Italian rebels, guys like Marcello Gandini and his Alfa Romeo Carabo, decided to throw the curves away. They wanted to create the design of the future, and the future was the wedge. You see, the wedge was born out of technology. The space race was all anyone talked about, and so designers like Gandini and Giorgetto Giugiaro wanted to build cars that looked music like spaceships. Straight edges, triangles, flat planes, needle-thin noses that looked less like cars and more like knives. But those noses were impossible if you had to fit music, a big inline 6 or V10 up there. And so, enter their secret weapon, the mid-engine music layout. By moving the engine behind the driver, the front of the car didn't need to hold anything. It could be a blade, a doorstop, music. And thus began the wedge era. The philosophy was simple. The car was shaped like a knife, a sword that would effortlessly cut through the air, and thus it would be music faster. And boy, how did these cars look fast? The Lancia Stratos, the Lamborghini Marzal, the legendary DeLorean DMC-12, all cars that had the wedge. And the wedge soon became more than just a trendy design. It became a promise to customers. Music said, we're going to the moon. We're flying supersonic, and now our cars are going to push through the air like never before. Until music, an invisible force, pushed back. That force was physics, specifically this. This is the equation for air resistance. And this music is what killed the wedge. Now, I'm not going to go all Jason Fensky on you. All you need to care about is this CD. CD is your coefficient of drag. You'll see it quoted on the spec sheet of basically every modern car. And more or less, it tells you how slippery your car is. The lower the CD, the more slippery the car, and the less resistance it has as it drives down the road. Now, less air resistance means less fuel use. And this was very important because of a little something called the 1973 oil crisis. Yes, it's our old friend again. It really isn't an Alban history video if we don't mention the oil crisis. Basically, oil embargoes meant that fuel prices went way up. And the US music government realized that we couldn't keep wasting gas on these inefficient cars. So they created the corporate average fuel economy standards, aka CAFE. And CAFE dictated that car companies had to hit a certain miles per gallon average across all the cars in their fleet by a certain time. Their first target in 1978 was 18 miles per gallon. And year by year, that number went up, forcing car makers to make cars more and more efficient. And to do that, they had to not only build more efficient engines, they also had to fight the air. And the air is unforgiving. So in the mid-1980s, some smart people in lab coats and thick glasses set out to decipher how the air worked. Aerodynamicists, they called them. And these brilliant nerds figured out that, well, the wedge wasn't quite the ideal way to slice through the air. The Italians were on the right track when they started to decrease the frontal area of their cars. But once aerodynamicists started putting every car design through the same supercomputer wind tunnel analysis, the computer eventually gave everyone the same answer, the teardrop. You see, the laws of physics are universal. So if you optimize for efficiency, every single car, no matter whether it's a Toyota or a Porsche, is eventually going to look like the same teardrop, a narrow, rounded front end that gradually gets bigger and then tapers down to a long, pointy tail. But you might be thinking, outside of maybe a McLaren Speedtail, there are very few cars that have that shape. And well, that's because engineers then found out that if you cut the tail off, music vertically, the air would still follow that ideal teardrop shape. That cut version was called the cam tail, and it was this modified teardrop design that really started to take hold of the automotive industry in the 1990s. Cars went from looking sharp and angular in the 80s to looking soft and round. There are the obvious ones like the Toyota Prius and Honda Insight, but even if you look at sports cars, the FC RX-7 to the FD, the Mark III Toyota Supra to the Mark IV, they looked as though the clay models had been shaped with running water. Smooth curves, flowing lines. Even the McLaren F1, arguably the most iconic supercar of the 90s, was far more soft and curvy than any of the supercars that came before it. But it wasn't just the air. It's also this. Look at how high the hood is on this car. And now look at how high the hood is on this 30-year-old car. This shift started happening in the early 2000s in the effort music of safety, because we stopped worrying about just the people inside the car and started worrying about the people outside of it too. Music, and global standards, especially European ones, now mandated that if a pedestrian hits your hood, their head shouldn't hit the engine. There had to be a crush zone, about 4 in of empty space between the metal hood and the hard engine parts. And, well, if aerodynamics didn't kill the wedge, then this definitely did. You just couldn't have a needle-thin nose anymore. You needed a blunt, tall, pedestrian-friendly front end, music, and along with the wedge shape went hood ornaments too. Hence why Mercedes uses badges and why the Rolls-Royce Spirit of Ecstasy has to retract away when driving. And then, of course, there's the roof. In 2009, the rules changed. To survive a rollover accident, your roof had to support 3 times the weight of the car. And that meant thicker A and B pillars and smaller windows, which also meant the cars were a little harder to see out of now, essentially trading visibility for strength. And ironically enough, some studies showed that accidents went up because of that, mostly low-speed collisions and parking lot accidents with pedestrians because, well, the cars had bigger blind spots now. But like with most things, it was a give and take. Low-speed accidents might have gone up, but the chance of surviving a high-speed or rollover crash also went up. And for most people, that was a worthy trade. But outside of safety, these new rollover standards also meant a significant change to how car designers could design the greenhouse of a car and how low the beltline could be. And that meant that music cars essentially all started looking the same. The ideal teardrop shape, a set of thick A pillars and a tall bulbous hood. But truth be told, that still wasn't the biggest factor that led us to the gray maxing attack of the clones that is car design today. The biggest factor, force number 3, was money. You see, designing a car from scratch costs at least $1 billion, $1 billion. So, at around the 2000s, the industry started building what they call modular platforms. Cars nowadays are essentially Lego sets. The hard points, where the wheels and suspension go, where the engine and transmission sit, are pretty much fixed. A designer can change the lines and shape of the panels. They can make new headlights and grills. They can stretch or shorten the car overall. But the skeleton, that's locked in by the accountants. Even when you think you're buying something unique, you're often just buying a different skin on the same global skeleton. For example, the Toyota Camry, RAV4, Highlander, and Lexus ES, they're all the same underneath. It's called TNGA-K. How about BMW? The 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series, heck, even the X3, 5 and 7, even the Toyota Supra, they're all on BMW's Clar platform. And then there's the big one, Volkswagen's MQB. The Volkswagen Golf, Jetta, Tiguan, Passat, Atlas, the Audi A3, S3, A1, TT, Q2, Q3, Skoda Octavia, Fabia, Scala, Kodiaq, Karoq, Kamiq, Superb, Seat Tarraco, Ateca, Arona, Ibiza, Ateca, Arona. Every single one of these cars is the same Volkswagen MQB underneath. Also, man, I couldn't pronounce half of those, and that's not even the full list. This many cars sharing the same underpinnings means that manufacturers are saving a boatload of money by essentially simplifying the design and manufacturing processes. And considering that cars are more expensive than they've ever been before, with the average cost of a new car in the US just under $50,000, manufacturers are profiting now more than they ever have. All while it's getting harder and harder for us to afford these ugly hunks of piano black plastic. But let's be honest, it's not just cars that are pricey. Groceries, restaurants, rent, things are more expensive than ever. It's made me need to go out and find ways to make my money work smarter. And with inflation the way it's been over the last few years, my money, and probably your money too, has literally been sitting in a regular savings account losing value every single day. But luckily, I found a fix for that with today's sponsor, Bankrate. I just followed the link that's down below the like button or on this QR code, and Music Bankrate compiled a list of high-yield savings accounts with their interest rates plain to see. So I just picked the best one for me and clicked next to go to the bank's website and filled out my info. After I was approved, I moved my cash over, and now I'm making 4% on my savings instead of it just disappearing from inflation. And the best part is these are all FDIC or NCUA insured. So your money is fully protected, just like a normal bank, but now with a way higher yield. So scan the QR code or hit the link below and start earning instead of letting your money shrink. Now, back to the cars. This move to global platforms also meant that there was far less flexibility for designers to create something original. There are only so many shapes you can make when you're constrained not only by the tight box of a platform, but also by efficiency-focused aerodynamics. We used to make fun of cars like the OG Prius because it looked like a jelly bean with wheels. But now, nearly every single car on the road is that same jelly bean shape. And perhaps in some sick twist of fate, the current Prius looks cool as hell. Now, some of you may rightly be thinking, if car design is constrained by hard points for big engines and transmissions, then electric cars should be the perfect recipe to change the game. EVs have no engine in the front, they have flat floors with no tunnels for transmissions, and they have all their mass in the floor thanks to those low-mounted batteries with minimal cooling equipment needed. And yet, most EVs look like this, screaming, fat, amorphous blobs with weird ghost faces riddled with piano black plastic. Somehow, even more uninspiring than the ICE cars they're trying to replace. And well, the reason for that is simple. EVs live and die by their efficiency. And the efficiency of electric motors and batteries is largely the same between most car manufacturers. ICE. So they have to rely on aerodynamics to make their cars worth buying. The Mercedes EQS might just be the ugliest car I've ever seen in my life, but it's got a CD of just 0.2. The Hyundai Ioniq 6, 0.21. Then again, the Porsche Taycan has a 0.22 CD, and it doesn't look like a Hot Wheels that your dog just swallowed and pooped out. Same with the Lucid Air. These cars are proof that you can absolutely make a car look half decent and still be as slippery as can be. Yet for some reason, car manufacturers are happy to let abominations shaped like this hit the market as long as it hits the numbers that the accountants asked for. And, well, the accountants haven't just ruined the shapes of cars, there's also the color. In 1996, just 40% of cars were grayscale, white, silver, gray, black. Today, it's 80%. Now, we did a whole video on why cars have become so music gray, which is linked below the like button. But here's the cliff notes. People have become risk averse. Dealerships want colors that they can resell easily, and they'll happily convince you that a gray or black car is a far better buy because it'll hold its value better. But let's be honest, it's us too. Consumers want cars that look like their phones, like their houses, minimalist, gray, boring, simple, inoffensive shapes and shades, flat, simplified logos, big old TVs stretching from edge to music edge, designs that are made to look good on a smartphone screen, designed to stop your scroll when you're doom scrolling at 2 or 1 a.m. in the morning. Not designs that actually look good in the real world. It genuinely seems like car makers don't care whether we like the cars or not because they don't want us to own the cars for long anyways. Cars, like many other things, are just becoming devices that we use, throw away, and buy another with more and more frequency. We're trapped in this endless cycle of e-waste and planned obsolescence. And music, what used to be a cultural icon of freedom, has now just become another digital appliance. So what do? Frankly, I'm not sure. There's always voting with your dollar, and there are definitely some cars that are worth your hard-earned money more than others. But in this day and age, it feels more and more like the opinions of consumers aren't much of a consideration for the majority of manufacturers. All that really matters to them is how much profit they can squeeze out of us with subscriptions and services and basic features paywalled away. But on the other hand, if I take a step back from the car enthusiast perspective, yes, cars are uglier now. I think that's an objective music fact. But they're also a triumph. The boring cars of 2026 are the safest, most efficient and music, most practical machines in human history. We traded the wild, dangerous geometric chaos of the 60s and 70s for a system that works perfectly for everyone, but inspires no one. And while shareholder profits are definitely a factor in this sensitization of the automobile, it's hard to argue with the leaps, music, and bounds we've made in safety. In a way, it seems like car design died so that we could live. And for most people, that's probably a rational trade. But standing here in this sea of silver jelly beans, I can't help but wish for another Marcello Gandini or Giorgetto Giugiaro to come in, tear up the rule books of today, music, and design a car that makes us fall in love with the automobile once again. What do you think? Let me know in the comments under that subscribe button. If you like this video, then you'll love our deep dive on the psychology and corporate greed that killed colorful cars right here. And you can get early access behind the scenes and exclusive videos by hitting join below or clicking the link for our Patreon.